Welcome back to Good Morning Sri Lanka. In case you just tuned in, we are speaking today about a slap in the face and saying, hey you, focus on the road when you're driving. We're here to speak about prevention of auto accidents. And of course we have Professor Saman Bandari here in the studio and Loshika Pereira, who is a senior lecturer at the University of Murray. Now gentlemen, we were just speaking about prevention of accidents. Now here's one thing that I was really curious about. If I was to take part in an accident, if I was obviously involved in an accident, what sort of measurements should I take? For example, should I take pictures? Should I maybe film it of the accident? Maybe should I do these things when it comes to an accident, an auto accident?
Well, I don't think that you are in a mind to do those things when you meet with an accident. So you are in a shock. So it's not necessary, because today the technology is there. Once you look at what has happened, you can tell you can really tell what has happened by looking at the damages. But that technology or those tools are not being used in our country. That is why we start arguing. Right. But looking at the damage and the brake marks and things like that, you can very easily tell what happened. Right. And it is not the important thing. We have to find out why these accidents happen. And also, I think before we go into that, there is another thing that we have to look at. When we use the road, we have to take precautions. Right. Because always we are vulnerable. So depending on your vulnerability, you have to make defensive mechanisms. Okay. So vehicle technology has developed. Vehicles are equipped with airbags and all sort of equipment. And
sensors. I've noticed this very recently.
But for people, especially the pedestrian, there's no sensors, no mechanisms. And the passengers also, you have certain tools, you have to use it. For example, seat belt or helmet. So we have to use it in a correct way, because they are there to protect you. Right. So without making use of those facilities, I don't think that we can blame anybody, because it's up to us to defend ourselves. If you take example from cricket, because you talk about it, the batsmen now wear helmets and pads and all these things, gloves. Why? Because they are vulnerable. Exactly. Right? So likewise, you have to know that when you get into the road, you are vulnerable. You have to take precautions. Right.
Since you brought up pedestrians being a large group when it comes to accidents, when it comes to auto accidents. Now, Loshika, speaking about statistics here, over the past few years, I would say over the last decade, the government has said, all right, pedestrians, you have to cross using the yellow crossing line. And also people have to wear, now it's a must, because I remember when I was a kid and I was here in Sri Lanka that I didn't really need to, if I was sitting in the front seat, I didn't have to put my seatbelt on. But now you do. You really have to. People really make you do this. Have you seen a reduction in auto accidents from the statistics that you have analyzed?
With respect to passengers or in general?
When it comes to both.
Yeah, fine. I mean, to be honest, if I tell you the latest statistics, when you look at 2013 statistics, right, compared to 2012, there's a reduction about 3,000 accidents from total,
That's a lot.
Something like 3,000 per the given year as per the police records. So I mean, there's a reduction in accident, but we can do more. That's what we are thinking. That's what our argument is. So we are trying to find out, okay, what makes these accidents basically. That's what we are involved in. Do some research and find out, okay, how these things happen. If, for example, you look at like one single type of accident at a given place, it might be happening over and over again. Correct. That may not be due to the some mistake done by a driver all the time. True. The mistake was done due to some other factor. So we had to find out what factor is that. Right. So if we can find that factor and if you can correct it probably, I mean, there will be, or rather we'll be saving a lot of more future accidents, I would say. Sure. So that's how we can save lives and in fact save accident or rather reduction in accidents as well. Right. So as you mentioned the passenger involvement, most of the time, I mean, it could be again, I mean, putting aside the mistakes done by drivers and the passengers or rather the pedestrians, there could be some other factors leading to that particular type of accidents as well. For example, the lighting conditions.
True.
Sometimes in like inappropriate accesses that are made, I would say that awareness could also matters and so forth. So I mean, if you can let them know, what's going on and what is the right thing to do and how to prevent these accidents, what are the most occurrence type of accident, so forth.
Right.
We can educate people about it.
Of course.
And so we'll be a bit more careful in such instances,
Sure.
So that would, I would say, that would lead to some sort of more reduction in accidents than what we have right now. So still, way to go.
Right. Speaking of reduction in accidents, I remember, for me, what I would always hear is that before the highways came about, that a very dangerous road was from Colombo to Gaul. And obviously, back in the day, there used to be a couple of accidents happening every other day. Obviously, has it reduced since the highway has come up when it comes to auto accidents?
Well, can't give a straightforward answer
we have done some studies on that, because there are so many other factors that you have to consider, because the traffic also have reduced.
Of course. True. Very true.
So we have to screen and get the actual number per vehicle, because otherwise just because the total number has reduced, we can't say it's safe.
Of course.
But the answer to your question is that why these type of roads are experiencing more accidents is because of the conflicting situation, because the pedestrian, bicycles and the vehicles all are sharing the same space.
True.
So the best solution is to separate them as much as possible. Pedestrian a separate place and so cycle a separate place and so forth. So once you have that, obviously the number of accidents has to reduce. But we have other constraints like the space availability and so forth. So in that situation, the other measures that we can take is to reduce the speed, because we know that reducing the speed can reduce the injury, severity of the injury.
Of course.
So I think with the new road developments, we can see a trend in that way. Giving more space for pedestrian, giving more space for cycles, and proper lane marking. So when there is order, people also try to behave in an orderly manner.
True.
Now, the example that I'm taking always, when we talk about road discipline, is that you always try to overtake, bang the horn, and you are very impatient.
Flash your headlights.
In a road environment. But if you go to a bank, we don't do that.
Of course not.
We don't jump queue.
True.
Because there is order there. And so same people.
Okay.
Same people behave in a different way.
Yeah.
So this is the environment that is required. So when the road environment is also good, so obviously you will try to make, you will change. Right? So we have to do that.
Right. Brilliant. That is so brilliant. All right. So a famous comedian that came down here to Sri Lanka once said, I love your country, I love the new highway, and it seems so industrial, it's in par with international standards. But the one thing that you failed to see is the number of stray dogs that go on the highway. And now this has caused numerous accidents when it comes to the dogs, poor dogs. So let's speak about when it comes to the highway rules and regulations, which a lot of people still don't know. What are these regulations that we have to follow when you're on a highway?
That's right. That's a whole different, thing that we should talk about. Now these things are new to the country, and most of the people are not really aware of, how to drive, how to do certain, I would say, for example, diverge, merging, and that kind of activities in the road. Not really aware of, and I would say haven't gone through any practical situations as well.
Sure.
So when you're getting your driver's license, probably you just do some practical test and stuff, but it's on local road. But nothing is given for a, I would say, highway sort of driving.
Yeah.
So we need to incorporate these things into our, I would say, the driving
itinerary?
testing, something like that. Yeah. And so there's a whole sort of like rules and regulations, the maneuvering options, and what you should do in an emergency. There are so many conditions that you can think of, and what sort of actions has to be taken. So these things has to be educated, has to be passed to the drivers or the people who are using this. So that is a must, I would say, education.
Right.
So that is where we are kind of lacking as a country, because I mean, more and more highways are coming into the scenes, and people just try to learn these things by just following someone.
Right.
If the leaders are not doing the right thing, I don't know. I'm just saying. So people, all of us are following the wrong thing,
Of course.
So, but I mean, why don't you do in the right way? Like, we can educate everybody. This is the right thing to do. So everybody would aware. Okay, this is what we should do.
So what you're saying is, when it comes to, if you are to get your driver's license today, you would say to have for these schools to have highway regulations incorporated into the syllabus that you are learning.
Yeah, that's the minimum that you can do.
Okay.
Because everybody can't have the experience, because unless you experience, this is the situation in road. Unless you experience, you can't learn.
Yeah.
Even the crossing the road, you have to cross the road and learn, because nobody can teach how to cross the road.
True.
Right? So if you try to teach, it will be, if you try to follow that rule, you will never cross the road.
Right.
So you have to have the experience. But since we can't have the experience, at least we can introduce that. But there are only two things that you have to remember in highway driving. That is, control your acceleration. It's different from normal roads. You can't have sudden changes.
Right.
So that has to be,
Correct.
you have to experience by yourself. The other one is, lane changing. Look over your shoulder for the black spots.
Right.
Whereas that is not happening in our country at all.
Right.
We just change the lane. And also when it comes to interchanges, you have to give way for vehicles incoming.
Oh.
So that is not, we are not used to.
Right.
So those two, if you can maintain those two, a lot of accidents can be minimized.
Right.
Especially the controlling the acceleration, because that is there are only two things that we have to do in driving. That is controlling the acceleration and the steering. So if you can do those two, you don't need anything else.
Okay.
But that practice has to be there.
True. True indeed. All right, gentlemen, unfortunately we are running out of time, so I just wanted to ask this. Now when it comes to now the options that you have laid out seem obviously really great for Sri Lanka's future. If we want to develop when it comes to the transportation and preventing these auto accidents, people have to make these changes when it comes to insurance or whoever, if you're on the street, do these things, that way it would prevent future accidents. If I was an enthusiast and I'm watching this show right now and I really wanted to know more about preventing accidents, how would I do this?
Well, there is enough literature available.
Yeah.
But if you want to get more information, anybody can contact us one way. The other one is that, in Sri Lanka we have what you call a National Council for Road Safety.
Right.
So they are the people who, coordinating these activities.
Right.
So you can get information from them as well. And also the traffic police.
Yeah.
That's the best place, because they have a lot of training and information. So those three are the three places you can get more information.
Interesting. See, I didn't know this, but now I do. Thank you, gentlemen, so much. And thank you for being on the show today. It's been really eye-opening, I guess, to also the people watching here. And we really appreciate you both coming here early in the morning, I might say. You both seem like, oh no, we're here on Good Morning Sri Lanka early in the morning. But thank you again for being on the show, Professor, and of course, you as well, Lashika. So we would like to say thanks from Good Morning Sri Lanka to spread the message to the public. All right, so we're going to a quick commercial break here on Good Morning Sri Lanka. Now we are enjoying the smooth sounds of Ellie Goulding, Burn.
You don't have to worry about